The Game Schooler Podcast is a weekly audio show that educates new and experienced gamers about the awesomeness of tabletop gaming. In this week's episode, we'll cover Art Society, our game of the week, discuss playing games you don't like in the School of Gaming, and wrap it up by revealing our high five, nay, top 10 from 2023 Revisited. Welcome to the Game Schooler Podcast. I'm your host, Doug Kotecki, along with my co-host, Dr. Michael McCabe. How's it going, Michael?
What's going on, Doug? How are you?
I am fantastic. Just thinking about our high five from last week.
Yeah.
And I love episodes like that because as you're talking, I'm on Board Game Geek looking up the games that you're talking about. And it's like, oh, I haven't heard of that one, or I have, or what does that look like again? And things like that. And just actually kind of leads into, I do have a little bit more follow-up, but it does lead into what I think is awesome with the game in gaming. And that's there's always something to explore. Whether it's a game that you already have and you want to dive deeper into it, or a new game that you have to play, or a game to discover. And I think that the fact that, oftentimes we talk about, and we will in future episodes, the number of games and how hard it is to keep up. There is a nice part of the hobby that I really enjoy, that there is always something new to explore or rediscover and branch out in whatever direction, whether you want to go wide or deep in the hobby. And I think that's one of the most awesome parts of board gaming in general.
Yeah, we've talked about, you and I offline have talked about the different villages that make up the hobby, or the different trees and all the different branches or paths or roads. There, you can go a lot of different directions and places. Yeah. And it really is awesome. I think, and I'll just segue into that. One day after this episode drops, we are halfway to Gen Con. And although, we've only covered the best 4 days of gaming since 2023, it's clear that Gen Con sets our show for the entire year. Yeah. And we're 6 months removed, but we're still playing games that we picked up, or we're still, last week we talked about how we're excited about games that we saw or got a demo of or found out about. And so I'm not, if we go or don't go this year, I don't know. We haven't even crossed that bridge fully yet. But it is just one of those things that the hobby keeps moving. It keeps going. And there is a nice cycle to it if you can find that cycle. And I feel like we've hit a groove that works for both of us and helps the show going too. So,
yeah. Another thing that's awesome about gaming is it's been great hearing on the Discord how folks use games as teachers, homeschoolers, librarians, counselors, and parents. And that there's a wide group in that Discord server sharing how they use games and the unique things that they come up with, whether it's games in a classroom or, I introduced this at a library. I'm using this, when kids come in to talk to me as a counselor and things like that. All of the different, and even just the homeschooling of, we set up a unit about this and we played this game, and then that led to conversations about that. It's a really cool community, sharing ideas and talking about some of those things. So if you're ever looking for any information on game schooling and how to implement it, whether you're talking about, just personally as a parent or in a professional setting, it's a great community to find resources on that.
And people it's mostly United States, but there are people from all over the world that are on there and participating in some capacity as well.
What about you, Michael? What's awesome for you in gaming this week?
Well, I think that was the big one for me, is that, the Gen Con newsletter came out recently, so I've been looking and lurking at the site and thinking about it, and just, it's one of those things that on our ride back, well, we don't know if we ever need to go again. and not to speak for you, but we had that conversation. It's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right. But then just 6 months removed, it's like, I can't wait to go back to Gen Con.
I'm itchy.
My people are there. Like, it is the best 4 days in gaming. Go ahead.
Well, it's just amazing. We can, it takes us about 5 hours to get there, to drive there. It's amazing that you and I can get in a car and talk the entire 5 hours down, whether it's podcast or gaming related, or something about our terrible sports teams that we like, but go to the convention, spend 3 to 4 days together entirely, and then have that 5 hour drive home and still be talking the entire way home about what we experienced and did. And, that's such a cool experience of all of the stuff outside of the gaming.
Yeah.
That
just the friendship, the experience of being in the hobby with people, seeing familiar people year after year.
The steer in. It's like there's things I don't want to give up.
Yeah. That's what's awesome for me is that I can remember coming back from Gen Con in early August and just how busy August is for families and people and educators, and be like, wow, we did it. But then you get into the winter months and the doldrums, and some of the games are getting played. But you're getting kind of the bottom of that Gen Con pile.
Yeah.
And then some of the random memories. It's like, man, that to me is what's awesome in gaming. It best 4 days in gaming. It's a cool thing. So
yeah. All right, our spotlight this week is Video Game Champion from Arcane Wonders, published in 2024 in the U.S., available earlier in 2023. The designers are Patrick Mateus, Andre Luis Silva Negrão, a bunch of artists involved in this one. Michael. 2 to 5 players, about 60 minutes, ages 14 plus. In Video Game Champion, players are transported to the nostalgic setting of the early 1990s, where they step into the shoes of children balancing multiple activities such as earning pocket money, studying, and immersing themselves in the captivating world of 16-bit gaming. From flipping through video game magazines to renting games, asking your parents for gifts, and spending hours pushing buttons, the game captures the essence of that era. So in Video Game Champion, you're going to be selecting a card from a grid. It's going to have a number and a color on it. The card that you take is going to determine the potential actions that are available to you. And then you're going to use those buttons to actually, or those cards that you're collecting, to play games in order to play them and possibly beat them and score points along the way for the games that you are playing. You can collect magazines that will help you beat games and buy games and rent games and all of that type of stuff. I don't know that we need to do a full deep dive into all of the gameplay minutia, but that is the gist of Video Game Champion. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, it's a cool little game. 5 rounds, 3 actions per round, and so you're taking a tile, and then you're taking one of 2 actions based on the tile you took. I think the theme really pulls me in. My parents owned a video store. I've talked about that a few times, but one of my first job was restocking shelves, and I can absolutely remember the day when Super Mario Brothers 2 came out, and my dad would not let me take the store copy home early, so trying to negotiate that with Lloyd and being like, hey, Dad, no, I need that. And then came to find out.
How am I going to communicate with the customers if I don't know how it works?
Came to find out a few years later, he actually got a second copy for one of my childhood friends for their family and didn't really make a big deal or tell anybody about it because he couldn't get Super Mario Brothers 2, right? So at that time, like when it first came out. So for me, the sense of nostalgia associated with Video Game Champion was just through the roof. And and you've told our listeners this one, I ran and got suckered into, paid full MSRP at Gen Con for because I was afraid that it would be like a World Wonders of 2023. It would sell out and then I couldn't get a copy. But I've learned since then, you can always get a copy. So the art, it is just fantastic. It really, really is, and how it's all original art in the game. There's some cool things that are happening, and you should check it out if that appeals to you. The last thing that I'll say for me, it's in the Dice Tower Essentials line.
Yeah.
And for us, when we were a part of the Dice Tower Network, it used to, and not that we're not that we've been kicked out, but the Dice Tower Network no longer actually exists. But there was a collection of shows and podcasts that were made up the Dice Tower Network. So for a while in my head, I felt like I have to play every Dice Tower Essential, and now I can't keep up with all of them, Doug. It's like Pokemon. Yeah. I can't catch them all, so cool game. How about your thoughts?
Well, I love the theme and the artwork. I wish there was more interaction between players. There's certainly a race to you're trying to collect there's boxing out, but not as much interaction as I thought. And I kind of feel like that I kind of wish that there was either more focus on collecting games or playing games. And it's so close to it hits the right nostalgic notes, but there is just something that doesn't connect for me, that I feel like I'm playing like I know what they tried to do thematically, but there are parts of it that make me feel like I'm playing a little bit of more of an abstract game, as opposed to, like I said, either I'm trying to collect all of the games or play all of the games, and it's a good game. For me, it's not a great game.
Yeah,
I enjoyed my play of it, but it's not one that I need to seek out.
Yeah, and listeners know we don't hammer games, but I'll be clear and candid. This game's going to work for a lot of people. For me, it goes on a little bit too long for what it does, so it's not actually going to stay in my collection. I still think it's worth putting a spotlight on because we played it, we invested in it, we learned it, and it's a good game that will work for a lot of people. And I don't want to just do the comparison, but having played Rock Hard 1977, and alongside Video Game Champions, kind of like, no, this can move into somebody else's house. Somebody else can get some joy out of it. I don't think it's going to, I have it on a trade list currently if I'm, so, but I'll play it again. I'll gladly play it again. If somebody else wants to play it, it's just, it took about 90 minutes, and I think that was from startup to putting back in the box. And if a game's going to take 90 minutes, it needs to do like kind of an Everdell, a Tapestry, a Dune Imperium. It needs to, something like that for me. And this one just, there was something that it wasn't doing that some other games I've played recently were doing. And I don't think that's us going negative. I think it's just sharing experience from.
No, and like I said, I think we both got done with it and was like, that was a good game.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing that we were complaining about that is like, oh, this is terrible. We're not even going to talk. Trust us, we've played a bunch of games that we're never going to talk about will ever see the light of day on this podcast. This is a good game, and if the theme appeals to you, it is a game that I think that will appeal to a lot of people, and certainly one if you're at a convention and you want to try it, or you'll go to the local game store, somebody's got it, and you want to try it. I think it's a really cool one to try because although it didn't necessarily hit for us, I think it will hit for a lot of people and hit really well. So,
and I'll say, like, for me, and Doug chime in on this, but this was a game where I felt like I was slowing down the table a little bit. The number of options and how the options were connected, and if this, then that, but I still want to take my time and do it right because of how tight the economy is. Like, you are a kid in the 90s, you have no money. You don't have money. So how you spend the few dollars that you have matters, I think, but thematically it's doing a ton of cool things. Like, you can go to grandma's house, to do chores, to get a few dollars here or there.
You can get IOUs, and in order to get your IOUs paid for, you have to do your homework and things like that. So it's got a lot of cool thematic ties. I think for me where it falls, and maybe it is why it maybe felt a little bit more thinky to you, is I feel like last week when we talked about Rock Hard 1977 having that perfect line of being restricted but not too restricted, this one felt like I wasn't doing enough. Like, I couldn't do enough.
I think I felt too much like a kid, where I'm not a kid anymore. So I
want to grow up.
Yeah, I don't want to be 9 years old in 1989, 90 again, So, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that is our Spotlight Video Game Champion. Check out our Discord. We talked about it earlier, but gameschooler.com/Discord, where you can go there and get the link and sign up. An awesome community. Spread the word about the podcast. We would appreciate it if you did. One way you can do that is by reviewing the podcast on whatever platform you listen to us. We would appreciate a review there. That would be awesome. And if you have any questions or comments, reach out to us at email@gameschooler.com. Again, email@gameschooler.com. Now let's move on to the game of the week.
The game of the week. The game of the week is an in-depth look at a family-friendly game we think you should try if you get the chance. This week's game is Art Society. Doug, give us the stats.
All right, published in 2023 from Mighty Boards. The designer is Mitch Wallace, and the art is by a ton of folks. You can get the full listing at BoardGameGeek.com if you would like that. 2 to 4 players, about 30 to 60 minutes. Ages 10 plus, and I'm going to agree with that. And this is going to be a family game for us. In Art Society, you are an art connoisseur trying to impress your peers by putting together the most fashionable art collection of them all. Bid on the hottest works of art, then arrange them on your drawing room wall into a tastefully curated gallery that's the envy of the local art scene. But beware, fashion is fleeting, and trends are difficult to predict. The paintings that you and your fellow collectors do not buy will eventually make their way to the museum, changing the worth of your collection. The way the game works is that the auctioneer, which will rotate around the table, is going to select paintings from the box equal to the number of players plus 1. The paintings come in various sizes and shapes. Once the paintings are out, everybody is going to simultaneously place bids. Each player gets a set of bid cards from 1 to 20, and you can pick any card that you want to bid on the paintings available. Whoever's got the highest bid will go first, and then so on down the line to the lowest. When it is your turn, because of your bid, you will acquire and place a painting according to your bid. And as you're placing the paintings, you're trying to avoid faux pas, which there are 4 painting types in the game, and you do not want a painting type touching the same painting type. So there are still lifes and portraits and things like that. However, there are 4 different frame types. Those you do want to put together, and the more that you put together, you can score bonuses and get some extra little bits to put on the wall to fill in spaces. The painting that is not selected is going to increase the prestige of that type of painting. So at the end of the game, those paintings will be ranked based on how much prestige that they have, the 4 different types. The game is going to end when the player has no empty spaces left, there are no bid cards left, or if somebody stores their second excess painting, which means they had to acquire a painting that they couldn't fit onto their wall. You're going to score points based on the prestige. So, for example, if the portrait paintings are the most valuable, you'll get 5 points for every portrait in your gallery. There are shields that are on those extra little pieces that you can get of decoration. And there's also a sight line or an eye line bonus that is kind of your center section of your wall, which is if you're standing there, that's where you would see directly. And you can score bonus points depending on the paintings that are in there. So that's essentially how you play Art Society. What do you like about this one, Michael?
Boy, I like everything that you just said there. I am so impressed when a first-time designer gets so many things right. And from what I could tell on Board Game Geek, this is, Mitch Wallace's first game. Right out the gate, I love the bidding with the little, they appear to be like coasters, friends at home, but they have the number on them as if you are at a prestigious auction.
Yeah,
and so you yes, well, that's where you would go.
Yeah.
Mine would be like Dave's Barbecue Pit out
Bill's
off County
estate
Road
sale.
ID. Yeah, there you go. Why are you giving away all my good spots, Doug? But I absolutely love the auctioning and the bidding, and sometimes winning isn't always the best thing that can happen either. Like having that first or second place, because I might have won the auction, but I didn't actually think through where I'm going to put the painting on my board. So I like the initial play. That first time playing is a lot of fun, but then the repeated plays of how to get the paintings to fit together with the set collection, avoiding faux pas, wonderful little puzzle, all in 30 to 45 minutes. Sign me up. So Art Society for me was a big hit.
Yeah, I love having access to your entire bidding deck. Some games will have it where you're bidding with coins. You know, you may have money and you can spend so much money, and everybody's looking around the table and it's like, oh, Michael doesn't have very much left. And there's other games where it's like, okay, everybody's got bidding cards, but you're drawing the top 5, and those are the ones that you can use, or things like this. This, you get all 20 of them, and you can loosely remember what has been bid. It's like, all right, Michael's used his 20. Dan has used his 20. I know now that I have my 20 left, and I can win whatever auction I want.
Yep.
And I love being
or
able
you're
to,
18, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes like, nope, they got theirs are out. I'm good here.
Yeah. And so then being able to analyze when you really need something and when you should bid high for it, and then when it's a situation where it's like, I think I can make any of these work, coupled with the idea that whenever you're the auctioneer, you get to pick out the paintings.
Yes.
So you're picking out sizes that will work for you.
Or won't. That's the other thing that I do love about this. If I know that I can pick a loser. So if I know I'm going to throw in my 1 and I'm going to throw out these 2 huge gargantuan and this one little small one, and I like that. I really like that part there, and I didn't mean to just jump in, but I love the fact of choosing the auction. You can kind of do some of that. Well, I'm going to make them think that I want these, but really I want these over here because this is the set that works best. So,
or you can throw out 3 big ones that the other people can't even place.
Yes.
And it's like, well, I still have this big, huge space there, and now those guys aren't going to be able to take it. So there's that. There's the puzzle of organizing your board, and trying to avoid the faux pas is cool. There's a great combination of interaction with one another with the bidding and what's being placed out there, and then collecting and placing is your own personal game that you're keeping track of. It's also really cool when you're the last one to take a painting and you have to determine, maybe it was one of those rounds where it's like, I can take anything out there. I can make anything out there work. So I'm going to bid my 1 and I'm going to be the last one picking. But then it gets down to the end, and then you're looking at what's available, and you're like, I really kind of want this one. But if I do take the one that I want, Michael's going to score more points because the prestige is going up, and he's been collecting all of the blue paintings, all the still life paintings he's been collecting. So maybe I should take the still life paintings. But then the green one I'm not taking is going to bump that up and to now be the highest card. So I love that there's that little bit, and there's a little bit of, when somebody gets into that position. And who says
that Doug's not a solo gamer? He just brought you right into the table of Art Society.
But there's also if you play the game enough, there's a little bit of like, no, Michael, you can't take that. You're not going to let Dan get, that's going to boost that up, and kind of talking with each other. I think they did a good job of having essentially 8 simple things to keep track of. 4 art types and 4 frames. That's all you need to think about.
Yeah.
And one of the things they did really well is that the player boards have these little dimples on them that allow the pieces to kind of stay in place and to help you calculate the size, because essentially you're putting like 3x2 and 4x6 little painting tiles and things like that. It really makes it easy to calculate without a lot of extra brain power, which I think you maybe picked up on like halfway through the first game when we were playing. Is like, oh, wait, I can do this. And this is really intuitive once you realize.
Yeah, the other thing that I picked up on halfway through that teaching and learning game that you actually dominated and stopped me in and just chuckled while doing it. The iconography and the frames are fantastic. they did a really good job. When this game was first announced, and the A+ content creators got copies and loved it. I don't know if that was late 2022 or early 2023, but I stayed away because I just figured, oh, the colors. It's Art Society. I was looking at some of the frames, looking at it two-dimensionally. And then when we saw this game on the table at Gen Con 2024, I immediately was like, okay, I want to play. I want in. Let's get this thing played. And I'm glad that it's had almost a little bit more staying power than some other games that just come in and out. I think, it won the Barnes & Noble Game of the Year. That helped it. The price point where it's $39.99 MSRP and it's in stores like Barnes & Noble, where what that means on the right day you can walk in and get it for $18 to $22 has helped it. And I think the fact that it's a cool little game that's very approachable that you can play with families and gamers alike has also helped it. I think there's a big variety of where this game can fit. Maybe that's just me because it's doing so many different things that I like. I love bidding. I love the set collection aspect of it. I like the variability. And what you just said, the dimples and how everything fits together on the board nicely. And lines up perfectly, just like in Penny Black and some other games that we've talked about and covered as games of the week. I also really enjoy.
I think the only thing to be aware of is that if you go too young on this, you're probably going to run into some frustrations with the faux pas and kind of getting things that spatial perception that's in this game is a little bit tighter than other games.
It closes in, right?
Yeah, it closes in, and it is easy to be like, oh, wait, I can't put that there. Like, that happens 2 or 3 times a game, and Michael and I are playing games all the time.
Yeah.
And we're both going like, oh, no, I can't put that there. So I imagine with younger kids, that would be a bigger issue of them getting to the end of the round and being like, oh, yeah, none of those aren't going to score because they're all connected. And so you kind of have to watch depending on how young you could go with this game.
Well, and that happens to the point where there's an actual rule where you need to declare that your turn is complete so that the next person can draft their painting. So, no, that's a really good buyer beware PSA there, Doug.
Yep, I think this is going to fit on a family game night and just a general game night. I think it is one of those rare games that can be engaging for hobby players and for family gamers equally.
Yeah, and I just wanted to just kind of tie it to a few other games that we've talked about in the last 200-ish episodes where you kind of see some comparisons. I think the Great Split is another type of game where although in the Great Split you're just playing cards and moving up tracks, I got a lot of the same feelings of joy. And maybe that's just me, but first time I played Art Society, it reminded me of the Great Split and Sunrise Lane. Some of it may just have to do with the art and the production, but those are both games of the week you can go back and listen to, or if you've been listening for a while and like, oh yeah, I've played both those games. This is another one kind of in that era of when they're being published together, although 3 different publishers, but all 3 of those games are games that, man, I don't see them leaving my collection anytime soon, and I really hope I get repeated plays.
I think what the connective tissue on those 3 games
gamer word
is the simplified rule set with crunchy gameplay behind it. It kind of falls into that
under an hour.
Yeah, it falls into that category, whether it's Sunrise Lane or the Great Split, where the rules are easy to teach, and once you go, you're up and running in no time. It's not none of those games are hard to teach, but there is fun engagement in such a simple rule set.
Yep.
There's a lot of games that have 4 or 5 rules in them, and you play them once and you're like, yeah, I feel like I got it. Like, I don't need to play this again, or it gets boring. It's the same thing. All 3 of those games have a simple 4-rule type of set, and then it's so engaging because of the variety afterwards. So I think that's a good pull there. As far as skills are concerned, one of the big ones we talked about spatial perception, but the other one is this is a good game for personal responsibility, which is a game that highlights the cause and effect nature of a player's actions and the related results. because you will place something down and then later you realize, I wish I had not put that there. Or, gosh, if this was just one section up, it would make a huge difference. Or if I had put this one section down, it'd be in the sight line and I'd scoring points. Why didn't I do that? So I think this is a good thing that as you're going along through the game, you're having to live with what you've already done.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great game for teaching personal responsibility. Like, nobody else made these choices for you. You've done them, and they compound over the course of the game.
Yeah, no, that's a great one there. And then obviously, the spatial perception with that as well. Just how fitting together the paintings. For me, I was much better at the second game than the first game. It did take a little bit of time to kind of figure out how things fit together, and I actually couldn't avoid faux pas. And so playing into, we often talk about skills that kids or other people's kids could learn. But for me, that sense of personal responsibility of, no, I put that painting there. That faux pas, that's mine. I need to own that. I can't blame that on color blindness or anything else. I did that. Yeah. So I think that's a really, really good connection there with that one.
Well, and it's interesting because it's the simple juxtaposition of, I want to put these ones together. I want to put the frames together, but I want to keep the style of art separate.
Right.
And so trying to balance
one
that
gives me huge points. The other one takes away points.
Yeah. It's like, ooh, I love that one. It's a gold frame. I can add it to oh, wait, no. Oh, wait, no, I could put it next to this
portraits.
one.
Yeah.
That's just that simple idea of like magnets. One side wants to go together and the other one wants to be as far apart as possible, and balancing that throughout the game is I think, what makes it special.
Yeah, there's a nice little economy as well, just with the bidding. Don't have a specific skill other than there's a unique and dynamic economy with the 20 points. Knowing when to bid high, cards. Knowing when it's okay to be third and to go last, or when to ditch an auction. So I think there's a skill to be learned with that as well.
Yeah, certainly the observation in that too. So that is our game of the week, Art Society from Mighty Boards.
The School of Gaming. In the School of Gaming, we discuss concepts, keywords, etiquette, and helpful ideas in the world of gaming. This week, we discuss playing games we don't like. All right, who wants to lead us into this one, Doug?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would just 3 quick bullet points, and we'll see where it goes. But for me, the first one, it really depends on who I'm playing with. If I'm playing with my 9-year-old, this could be half the games we play. It very likely is. And I'm also okay to say, I really don't want to play the game. Sorry, right now. I don't have 75 minutes. Can't we just play Impact Battle of the Elements instead?
Yeah.
If we're at Abuelita's house. But if I'm playing with my play group, I need to give the game another chance, or at least be open because somebody's very excited and they want to play the game. Yeah, I might not like it, but that could just be me, and I need to respect that too. So, and then at some point, and it's very rare, I can only think of 1 or 2, I might just need to tap out of the game. But that's so rare because I feel like I have to be past that point of giving a game a try. And so we're talking about 5 or 6 plays of a game. So that's kind of where I sit on that.
Yeah, I'm going to say something that I will strongly defend, that I think a lot of people in the gaming community would take issue with. But I think there's a general feeling as gamers, and certainly in the hobby, that you just shouldn't play games that you don't like. We only have so much time in the hobby, and you should never play games that you don't like. And I think people that take that stance are wrong. They're flat out wrong. Now, I don't believe that you should be forced or
coerced.
You shouldn't have to play games that you don't like. especially with strangers. Like if you go to a game group or a game meetup and somebody wants to play something, it's like just because they need a fourth doesn't mean you have to play a game that you don't like. You know, that is true. But your duty as a parent, you're going to have to play games that you don't like. And you need to find a balance between playing the games that they love, which is, you know, even to on your comment, Michael, it's like just because you don't want to play Sorry now doesn't mean you don't want to play Sorry ever. You're still playing Sorry with your kids, even if you don't like the game Sorry.
Yeah, my Let's Plays back that up.
It's finding a balance between playing the games that they love and then also pushing them outside of their comfort zone as well. So if you're living in a world where you're constantly pushing them into games that you like, you're doing the same thing to them that you are saying that they shouldn't be doing to you. It's like, no, we can't play Sorry, but I'll give you a better game to play. You're doing the exact same thing. I also think among friends.
Well, it was Game of the Year from Barnes & Noble, so
there you go.
It was better.
Hey there, ho there. There you go. I also think among friends, it's okay to play a game you don't like for a friend or a family member. Like, there's nothing wrong with being kind to people. And being part of a family or a community requires patience and compromise. Because for every game that I'm playing that I don't like means that other people in my game group or family may be playing games that they don't like.
Yeah.
That I love. And I think that that's part of, do I think you should play games all the time that you don't like? No, that's stupid. But this idea of constantly saying no or everything should be perfect all the time, it's like, well, good luck finding a game group because everybody's got different tastes. You know, Michael and I align on a lot of games. Yep. We have 85 to 90% overlap of games that we like. But there's still 10 that we do and don't match up on. And, you know, there's some games that, you know, there's a push and pull of, if I know Michael doesn't like a game, I'm not going to keep pushing it on him, and he's not going to do the same to me. At the same time, there's also like, I also want to do good for my friend and like play a game that he likes, even if I don't really like it, because I'm being nice, and that's part of being friends and family. And to that end, if you are going to play a game that you don't really care for, you don't like, make sure you're not ruining it for everybody else, which is sometimes very difficult if you're playing a game that halfway through you're like, I don't think I like this. It's like you don't start poo-pooing the game while it's going on and ruining the experience for everybody else and making everybody, you know, it's like anybody with a teenager or a preteen that's like they have no ability to hide when they're disgusted. And you're like, I don't want to go to the mall. I don't want to do this. It's like, don't do that while you're playing a game.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, because even just the grunting and the moving around, that type of thing is like, everybody knows how you feel. You don't need to say it. So don't ruin it for everybody else. Try and be invested as possibly can. Move on, get the game over with. And then, you know what? Maybe they'll play a game they don't like with you. And you wouldn't want them doing that during your game as well. Yeah. End of rant.
It's such a good rant. The one thing that I want to react to, add in, is that I am very quick to seek consensus on the rule of 2 feet. So if everyone at the table wants to just move on, we can put the game away. However, there's one person in my family who will not do that. If we start a game, we're committed, we're going to see the game through. The beatings will continue until morale improves, right? And I also have gotten that feeling either with you or with other people that I've played with. They're like, no, we don't want to give up on this. And so that is something that just interests me. I don't have any profound statement other than if I'm not liking a game, I do check in at about what I perceive to be the halfway point and just say, hey, should we just move on? And a lot of times if it's a game that I'm not liking, it typically is an hour of playtime. So then you get into that weird part of, well, we took the time to learn it. We're already a half hour in. Let's just spend the next, you get into that sunk cost, right?
Yeah.
So part of it is navigating that.
Well, I think
Is it I don't like, or is it are we not liking this game?
Yeah,
because I'm not liking this game.
Well, and I think
how's the rest of the table doing?
It certainly depends on the length, right? Like that's a big factor. I think it was, well, because my concept of timing and gaming is way off. It was probably 8 months ago, but it feels like it was 2 or 3 months ago. But there was a game that had been sitting on my shelf for a long time. And I'm like, can we just, I need to get this played. We need to try it out and just see if it's should be sticking around. And I think we got like 3 rounds in and I'm like, whoop, done. We don't need to play this. I'm stopping it.
I do recall that game.
There's no reason to keep finishing this. It will now go on the trade shelf and be gone from the house. So it's like,
that was July of 2022. I just checked my log plays, Doug.
Are you serious?
No, I made that up on the spot.
But so it's like those type of things happen from time to time, and I think those are kind of a case by case scenario, and it's always weird too if it's like you're the one that doesn't like it, but
that's the weird part
when you feel like, oh wait, everyone else is kind of enjoying it. So it's like, and you may have been the one that brought the game. You know,
what's the temperature in the room right now? How are people feeling?
And how do I bring that out without ruining it for everybody else and letting them know that I actively am not liking this game? But I think ultimately it comes down to like just being a kind gamer. Like there is no world where you will play every game that you like all the time and still be in this hobby. That doesn't exist.
I strive for that.
Well, good for you. It's impossible.
Especially if you're playing 100 games a year, 100 plus. If you're playing, averaging 2 new games a week or 2 games a week, you're going to find games that just don't work for you.
Well, or if you're playing, it's not even just about games not working for you. It's if you want to be playing games with other people, everybody's bringing their own taste to the game or taste to the party. Everybody's bringing games in, even if it's games in your own house in your collections. Like my kids love games that I loathe.
Yeah.
And they constantly want to play them. And it's like, you know what? Sometimes I have to play them.
Yeah.
To be a good dad and a good person or a good friend or whatever. Like that's just part of being in the hobby.
But that doesn't mean I have to go out and buy Sorry. Sorry can live at Grandma's house. Okay. I'm just telling you, that's where I sit.
There is a line there. I need to own every game that anybody that comes to my house would like to play at any given point. I think some people do live that way. I think we'll be talking about that in an upcoming episode, upcoming School of Gaming segment. So let us know how you guys handle playing games you don't like, where you guys sit on that. We'd love to hear it on the Discord. So let us know or email us, gameschooler.com. We'd love to hear from you. Now let's move on to our top 10. Every week, Michael and I like to highlight a list of games we want to play, enjoy, or spread the word about. This week, we're going to be talking about 2023, our top 10 games from 2023 revisited. We do a list, just like we did a couple of weeks ago, of our top 10 games of the previous year. However, that 1 year buffer seems to be the sweet spot of being able to play the rest of the games that you wanted to from that year. It gives you a whole other year to play some new games. And I think on my list, I've got 4 games that completely dropped off, new ones that popped on, and only 1 game in its original position.
Interesting. So I did not do a comparison for these 2 reasons. 1, I still have 7 games on my list that I'm really excited to play. They're on my want to play list. 2, I have 56 games from 2023 listed that I could easily slot in my top 10. Sure. I don't know if it's just the year or if it is the effect of what you just mentioned, that a year goes by, so many more games get played, not just the first time, but repeatedly. even my top 20, I could just say, I'm going to make this my top 10 and put together a list for the show. So many good games from 2023.
I'm more excited about the games that came out in 2023. Like for me, that personally is a better year for me than 2024 was.
Yeah, I think 2024 is still too fresh and new. I can't really comment on it other than
I can make a bold statement, and I did.
Way to be bold. Be bold, Douglas. But should I just jump in with number 10?
Yeah,
Any
go
more
ahead.
to react or talk about our list? Banter. Number 10 for me is Three Ring Circus, designed by Remo Canzadori and Fabio Lopiano, and artist is Eddie Vallis. And this is published by DeVere. And in Three Ring Circus, you hire artists and offer performances to become the most famous circus in the U.S. This was the darling of Gen Con 2023, is one that I picked up in a trade a few months later, played solo and adored it, ended up getting it played at a game day with some buddies. Doug was there. And I enjoy putting together, some of it is that set collection, getting people to put on a show, carrying out the show, but there's also a route management part of the game that I really enjoy. What city can I get to, and what performance can I execute when I get there? I don't want to just go on a rant about all 10 of the games, but to think that this is number 10 for me, I love this game. I don't see this game leaving my house. And so that's number 10 for me, is Three Ring Circus.
Great choice. Yeah. A lot of good games. I did not look at my original list before I made this list. So when I give you stats, I wasn't comparing it until afterwards to see where everything lined up.
When I had 56 on my list, I didn't even bother going back and looking. So back to you, Doug.
My number 10 was number 4 when we originally did the list. And that was, we talked about in episode 140, that is Disney animated from Funko Games and Prospero Hall. A very interesting cooperative game in which I really feel like you have to work together in this game and be a team to make it work. A game that I thought we might get some newer, updated versions of with more movies in it, but with Funko Games and things like that, I doubt that'll be the case. But it is a good little game, and like Michael said, there's so many good games. I feel like, even like the top, my 6 through 10, I feel like I could swap out 5 other games and be completely fine. So take that for what it's worth. But my number 10, Disney animated.
I had it at 34, but I could easily have it at 3 or 4 because it's one of my favorite cooperative games that I've ever played. And I mean that. I absolutely love playing that game and the different characters that are in it. Just a great game. Back to me, sorry.
Yep.
Number 9 is The Fox Experiment, designed by Jeff Frazier and Elizabeth Hargrave, publisher Pandasaurus. 2023 was the date, Doug. And in The Fox Experiment, you're rolling some dice and making some combos to. I'll just stick with the Board Game Geek flavor text here. Breed foxes over 5 generations and see what traits develop as they become friendlier. So you have 5 rounds and you're trying to get friendlier foxes from round to round. There is something about putting the dice together and triggering the combinations and thinking strategically one round ahead while also making sure that I am making progress in the round that I am in that I really enjoy. Game does go a little bit long. Board Game Geek has it as an hour. It's not been my experience. Part of that could just be that I'm slowing the game down or if playing it with gamers. The only way I get it done in an hour is if I'm playing solo. So that's number 9 for me, The Fox Experiment, and a game that I hope that I get more plays in. If I'm being candid and honest, it might be my 9th game from 2023, but I could also see it getting traded just because I don't want it just sitting on my shelf. This is such a good game that I'd want getting into someone's home who's going to get it played. So that's number 9 for me.
Yeah, gosh, it is so interesting that there are so many games that I feel like when I was making my list and looking at my Board Game Geek ratings, there was just so many that were like 7.5s, and like that gap of what makes it go like right on that tipping edge of like good to great. There's so many in that little sweet spot. You know, the top
and good to great can also be relative based on what you already have in your collection, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like the two games that you said, I'm like, yeah, I like those games. You know, but you know, too many games. So my number 9 wasn't on the list last time, and that's because I didn't play it until 2024, and that is Dreadful Meadows, published in 2023 by Arcus Games and designer Lucas Adam. This is a game about farming candy with
Good luck explaining this.
yeah, kind of a Tim Burton Nightmare Before Christmas-esque artwork in which you are harvesting candy by putting out little diamond-shaped fields that all connect to one another, and you're using little sprites and getting the candy and buying more fields and all that type of stuff. But what I really liked about this game is I kind of avoided playing it for a while. I backed it on Kickstarter. And I kind of avoided playing it because I played another game that was similar that I had a bad experience with, where I thought that the AP in this game was going to be a real problem. And it turned out not to be. And it goes
Game moves
really well, and it's not, you know, it's one of those where you kind of start building this bigger and bigger web. I'm like, oh, that's just going to add more AP and all these weird calculations, but none of that was the case. Phenomenal game, cool production. I think it's the retail version's widely available now. And so that's my number 9, Dreadful Meadows.
Awesome. Number 8 for me is Gnar, KNARR, Game of the Week just a few episodes back. I believe it was 201, maybe 202. I should have been more professional here. Let me check my spreadsheet. It was 201. Go back and listen to it because we just talked about 3 episodes ago, but designed by Thomas DuPont, another Pandasaurus, and also Bombix are the 2 main publishers on it. We've talked a lot about it. It's all over our Discord. Great little game in a small little box, and one that for the last 6 months I've been playing as much of it as I can and trying to show it to new people as well. That's my number 8, Gnar.
All right. My number 8 is Arcane Society, from Space Cowboys and Paulo Mori. This re-implements Ethnos, which is a game I really liked, and it took out the area control aspect of the game, which I'm not a fan of area control, so it worked on that level. Instead, you're moving up tracks, but I feel like it has the same essence of the original game, which is you are trying to build sets. However, once you finally build a set, everything else in your hand gets discarded. Mm-hmm. And it's that push your luck of how big can I make this set? But as I keep adding cards, that means I'm adding cards that I'm going to have to discard, which then become available for everybody else. So I might be picking up cards and then, okay, I don't need that card. Oh, I don't need that card. Okay, I'm just going to build this set because I don't want it to be any bigger. But the cards I'm putting down, I know exactly that Michael is collecting because he's picked up every open one that's available. You know, like, I can't believe I have to put these down for you. And that push your luck and struggle of wrestling with the cards in your hand and how far do I want to push it? And it's like, I could just make this a set now, but it's not going to score very many points. And some things to move up the track, you need to have a bigger set. I need to have 4 of those cards to move up. And so all of that internal struggle is what makes that game so good to me. It was the best. The card play was the best part of Ethnos to me, not the area control.
Oh, yeah.
So which is why I like Arcane Society better, because I feel like it focuses more on the card play, or the main crux is on the card play. Well, so that's my number 8.
It's an efficiency gem because there's a strict hand limit in that game too, right? So if you can always be 1 turn ahead, you can kind of
and each
really
suit has a special power
Yeah.
that allows you to manipulate some of the rules. So cool game. Number 8, Arcane Society.
Wonderful. Well, Doug, I'm not going to say much about number 7 because it's our game of the week next week, and that's Path of Civilization. So I'm going to hold my comments for that. But speaking of moving up tracks and great combinations and fun card play, you'll have to come back a week from now to hear about Path of Civilization, my 7th favorite game from 2023.
All right. My number 7 was number 3 last time, and that is the Art Project from the Op, designer Florian Siriex and Benoit Turpin. Just an awesome, we talked about it in episode 155, so I'm not going to go into great detail on it here, but a really cool cooperative game that, unlike a lot of cooperative games, gives you a good amount of agency and my own personal game that I'm playing, and I need to use my information to help out the group.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I feel like I'm playing a game and the group is playing a game together, and the amount of variety in such a small box is huge. So that is my number 7, the Art Project.
Really good game. Benoit Turpin and Vincent Dutrade art, and so much game in that box, right?
Yep.
Yeah, speaking of art, number 6 for me is Art Society. Game of the week from this episode. You can just rewind 20 minutes ago to find out why and hear my enthusiasm and joy about it. But the one thing that I left out in our description, the insert's really cool, you guys. How the pieces fit back together and how organized it is. Once it's punched out, you could get that thing out on the table and you're up and running. So great game, first-time designer, and Mighty Boards is certainly a publisher that I will continue to keep my eye on. So that's my number 6 is Art Society.
All right, my number 6 is one that has moved up on the list. The last 2 I talked about have dropped down a little bit. But that is World Wonders. We talked about it in episode 153 from Arcane Wonders, and Z Mendez is the designer. Great little, is it a polyomino? It's a tile placement game in which you're
polyomino.
Adding to your region in order to try and build wonders. And just that the whole idea of taking actions and deciding when to drop out and potentially take a wonder, but that ends your turn. So how expensive do you want that wonder to be? We go into more detail in episode 153. We talked about that one. So that is my number 6, World Wonders.
Great choice, Doug. I don't even want to tell you where I have it on my list from 1 to 57. All I want to say is great choice. Gladly play that one again. We're up to number 5.
I'm surprised it's that low for you.
What's that?
World Wonders.
You don't know where it's at. I didn't tell you.
Oh, I thought you. Oh, it may still be coming. Is that what you're hinting?
No, now you're going to make me pause and go back and look.
Okay.
Sorry, I've got a lot going. 17 for me.
Okay, you made it. I got the impression that was like towards 57.
No, I misled you. But the fact that I would gladly play that game with you today, I'd come over, play right when we're done recording, and the fact that it's 17th on my list and all of them are above it. I mean, it's just such a good game for me. Number 5 is Forest Shuffle, and this is a game that designed by Koch, another first-time designer. Lookout Games is a publisher. I've played it a bunch with folks from, listeners of the show on Board Game Arena. We have a nice little Board Game Arena channel on Discord, and in Forest Shuffle, you're drafting cards, and then you're playing some trees out of your hand. You have to spend cards most of the time in order to play some trees, and then you're going to attach animals to those trees just so you can trigger off amazing combos. So yeah, I played it really well sometimes. I've gotten absolutely destroyed more times than I've played it really well. I mean, like 312 to 95, but I still had a fun time playing it. That's my number 5 game. It's one that, if about a month goes by and I haven't played it, I'll fire up a game on Board Game Arena. It is also one of those, though, that just out on the table, my family has kind of been like, nah, no thanks. But man, I really
They've been overwhelmed by the nature of
enjoy that. Probably.
It's now available in Target.
Oh, that's good. Didn't know that.
Yeah, I saw that the other day. All right, my number 5, and pretty much my 1 through 5 could all be like 1A through 1E is kind of how I feel. So don't put too much emphasis on where they're actually at in the list. But my number 5 was number 2 last time, and we talked about this one in episode 162, and that's First in Flight from Artana, Matthew O'Malley, and Ben Rossett. It's a game where you are the early pioneers of aviation, trying to build a plane and get it off the ground, and there is a push your luck element to this one as you're crafting the cards that go into your deck and then flipping them over. It's got a combination. It's kind of a combination between a game called Mystic Vale and Quacks of Quedlinburg to me. It has that same feel of how far are you going to push to make your flight without hopefully not crashing.
With one part's Marco Polo because of the time track.
Yes. Yeah. Just moving around and landing on different action spots. So, and the production and the artwork is really well done in this game. So that is, and I know some folks in the Discord, I think, really like this one as well. That's First in Flight, episode 162. We talked about that one.
Awesome. Number 4 for me was a spotlight game also from episode 201, and that's Zuvadis. Dr. Reiner Knizia is the designer. You're negotiating your way through the zoo. Go back and listen to that. You can hear all about a recent play that my family and I had in the beginner version, or playing at a local convention in the version with the powers. There is a time to sit down and negotiate and try to get your way. And I love being able to do that in 25 to 30 minutes.
It's like trying to get somebody to play a game they don't like.
No. I know this one doesn't work for you, Doug.
No, I'm just saying that's the negotiate.
Yeah,
there's a time to sit down and negotiate.
But the other thing about Zuvadis and why I think it's rise, it's on my list this time around, just really easy to teach. Very, very, very easy to get it up and going. You're doing 4 different things on your turn, and like some of those good Dr. Reiner Knizia games, once you get through a round of it, it's like, okay, I see how everything works now. My time to play. So that's number 4 for me is Zuvadis from Dr. Reiner Knizia and Bite Wing Games.
All right. My number 4 is one that I have not played in a while, and I want to play again, but it is very hard to fit in based on time and getting the right people at the table, and that is Scarface 1920 from Red Zen Games. Just a great thematic game about organized crime in the 1920s in Chicago, and it is a area control game, which I usually don't like, but the theme and the way that you power up your boss and acquire new people into your gang and use them, and it has that variable round thing from Tapestry where it's like your round may end at a different time than somebody else's round, and another beautiful production, awesome artwork. My number 4, Scarface 1920.
Yeah, it's my number 3. It was my game of the year back in 2023. The only reason why it's dropped to 3 is I just haven't had another play. I feel like if I would have played this game last week or the week before or the month before, this would still be sitting at number 1 firmly. I had so much fun playing that. And for me, this is an example of I don't need to own every single game that I love, right? You have it. That's awesome. I'm going to, if I play that game in person, it would be with you more likely than not. So a fantastic game for all the reasons you listed. I think the other thing for me too, it's very immersive. I feel challenged intellectually playing that game, and in a gangster game, that there's some fun with that, and you can really stretch out, how am I going to make my little empire work here across the city? Great choice. Back to you.
All right, my number 3, Michael already mentioned. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. That is Nar. So a game we certainly didn't play in 2023, but one that rose up the list fast and just has that simplicity of gameplay to just get it out and going. And again, I think we talked about it during the episode, but fits in that Century Spice Road of type of feel to it that just works. It doesn't need a ton of theme, and it goes fast enough and is engaging in that amount of time. So that is my number 3, Nar.
Great. Yeah. Well said. Number 2, Doug, I gotta be, honest. It's our show, so I got to keep it honest with you, right? I've only played it once. Didn't get the game completed, but it's number 2 on my list where I have 57 games that I really enjoy playing, and that is Hegemony: Lead Your Class to Victory. And I think it's number 2 on my list because it is just so darn different. And talk about intellectually stimulating. I really enjoyed learning the game. I enjoyed learning all 4 factions. I enjoyed that, the working class, the middle class, the government, and the business class all had their own rule set. And I enjoyed the month and a half getting ready to play that game. And it's one that I don't, similar to what's in my number 3 spot with Scarface 1920, I don't know when I'll get it played again. But boy, I had fun playing it, and for those reasons, I've justified keeping it.
Yeah,
so that's number 2 for me. Hegemony: Lead Your Class to Victory.
All right, my number 2, Michael also already mentioned and rose up the list fast and wasn't on the list last time, and that is Path of Civilization. And like Michael, I will forego talking about it because we will talk about it next week.
Such a good game, isn't it?
Yes, very good civilization game that works well in its allotted time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And for those who are keeping close score at home and listening to last week's episode, I made a subtle mention to a game that I would be mentioning in a future episode, and that's my number 1 game, and that is Darwin's Journey. I know that Doug absolutely hates this game, so I'm going to talk about what I love about it. I've been playing this.
Do you know what it was? Was it on your list last year?
On board game? No, I don't believe it was. No, because I just had. It might have been. It might have been actually. Played it quite a bit solo. Took it to a game day. Failed to teach at a game day. Game was entirely too long. Game was entirely too complicated for a game day. But why do I like it? Why is it my favorite game of 2023? Every single worker placement spot matters. And I have 10 logged plays of this game. Now, a lot of them are either solo or on Board Game Arena. If I'm logging it off Board Game Arena, that means I sat down and played that real time on Board Game Arena for an hour and a half, right? And my scores are not always good, like 187 to 118. I didn't play well. 245 to 95. I didn't play well, but there's something that continues to draw me back to the game. Ooh, 83 to 108. I played better. And so I feel like
prevented them from getting more points.
Yes, I played better defense. It's from the opening decision of drafting the crew cards that are going to give potential bonus that also unlock certain spots on the board with workers, all the way to that very last turn, an hour and a half or 2 hours later, or 2 months later if I'm playing asynchronously on Board Game Arena. Every single turn matters. And I don't always like that in a game. Sometimes I really want it to be more forgiving.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that I've had the experience solo and now I'm getting like a second life and a second wind on Board Game Arena with it, and I feel like I actually know how to play it. That's why it's game of the year for me. But not when I'm going to try to convince you or convince. I don't think I'll play this in person, even at a convention. It's just too much of too much,
Yeah. But and there's the cases but you still have an outlet to play it, so it's fine. It's like be one of those things like Catan's my favorite game, but you need 3 players. And it's not available virtually. What do I do?
Yeah.
So it's nice that it has those, whether it's solo or Board Game Arena, that you can still play it. My number 1 was my number 1 last time, and that is Distilled from Paverson Games and designer Dave Beck. I think this does a great job of anybody that's listened to the podcast long enough knows a marriage of Euro games and very strong thematic ties to those elements and the way that you are mixing your spirits. And there is that there are the things I can control and the things I can't. There's that little bit of luck and randomness. You put all of them in your hand and shuffle them. You take off the top and the bottom, and you might have just taken off the things that actually make the spirit that you're trying to make. But you're still going to make a different spirit, just maybe not the one you wanted. And I love that. And The thing is, like, you can load it up, but that's going to cost you more money to have that kind of guarantee.
And do you have the right bottle to put it in to match it?
Yeah, I love that push and pull of so much of that Euro of I can, you talking about Darwin's journey, talking about every spot is important. This has elements where there's a lot of important things that you need to do, but there are other elements that can throw things out of whack or not work out properly, or maybe you get a power-up that helps you avoid some of those pitfalls. And that combination together is what makes this such a strong game for me.
Awesome.
It's my number one, Distilled. As far as what missed the list, Disney Lorcana was on my list last time. I just haven't played it enough recently. Santa's Workshop 2nd Edition. In the Footsteps of Darwin.
That was 12 for me with Santa's Edition. Go ahead, sorry.
In the Footsteps of Darwin was on my list last time.
24 for me.
A game called How Dare You was on my list last time. Some honorable mentions that missed for me this time that were very close are Kabanga, which could have been, it's up in the air whether that's a 2023 or 2024 release, depending on where you want to put it. Sunrise Lane was another one that was close.
11 for me.
And Bonanza Dahlias was another one because of how it took a game that I got rid of from my collection that I kind of liked but never really could figure out a way to get to the table, and made it a game that I love and would be happy to play anytime. So
yeah. Other near misses that we just hadn't mentioned yet. Scribbly Gum, which has been a game of the week and one that I absolutely love. Wild Tiled West, a game sitting behind me on my shelf that I enjoy. The Veil of Eternity, an awesome game with really cool combos. Kutna Hora, a game I'm not sure I've actually fully played yet, but I own it, and we've had the demo a few times. And then What the Cup. So
yeah, a lot of great games in 2023. Subscribe to the podcast. If you made it all the way here to the end of the episode and you're not subscribed, how dare you subscribe? Follow us on X at GameSchoolerU. Join our Discord, gameschooler.com/Discord. Next week, we're going to be talking about Path of Civilization. We're going to be talking about bringing people to the table. And we're going to be talking about games from 5 years ago, from 2020. Hard to believe that's 5 years ago already, but it is. So as time moves on, thank you so much for spending the last hour or so with us. We truly appreciate it.
Now get out there and keep gaming.